Hey guys, it's Elizabeth Nader. Welcome to the premiere of Jersey First TV. It's the first episode of our new show, and I'm so excited to be here. One of my favorite guests to interview of all time. Really, I'm so honored that you decided to come on with us, Bill. Agreed to join us for the special premiere. The voice of New Jersey, Bill Spadea. Welcome to Jersey First TV.
Thanks, Elizabeth. Exciting to be here. What a great idea. I love this platform. Fantastic.
Well, it is exciting. And I want everyone to know, they're probably wondering, I'm seeing something in the news with Rosemary Becky, Jersey First, and you know very well what's going on. But shout out to Rosemary Becky. She's reigniting Jersey First, which is her organization. And it's all about fighting for families, children, the hardworking businesses, small businesses in this state that are hurting. It's about putting politics under the people, right? People above politics. It's about focusing on healing the issues in this state. We have so many of them, and it's going to take all of us to come together. Jersey First is focused on giving us that voice. But Bill, I want you to kind of give us a state of the state. How did we get here? Why do we even need to be doing this? What's happened to our state? What is going on?
Well, the breaking news is that New Jersey is a mess, and everyone, of course, already knows that. And part of the reason is that for so many years, nobody paid attention to politics. Politics just kind of happened. We had all these inside deals and conventions on both parties, and what most people don't even think about is how many members of our legislature have been elected literally in a back room because there was a county convention and there was a vacancy, and 100 insiders decided who was going to be that person. The problem, of course, with that is it was way beyond ideas. It was all about this Tammany Hall style backroom cigar smoking, the smoke-filled room. Nothing against cigar smoking, by the way. I enjoy that. But the idea that there were these elite insiders who already had their money, already had their power. And it was never about the dry cleaners, the shoe repair guy, the person that stocks the shelves in the liquor store. It was never about those working families that are working 2 and 3 jobs each in some cases to make ends meet. And here we are. And guess what? Both parties are equally to blame. A lot of people want to put the blame on Phil Murphy. Let me tell you something. In my opinion, Phil Murphy is a result of the fact that we have been down on the job as citizen voters for the past 20 years. Let's face facts. Chris Christie pulled all kinds of shenanigans in the last couple of years he was in office, borrowing money. I mean, think about the $360 million for the State House renovation that actually, when it comes to the borrowing costs, will end up costing the taxpayers literally close to $1 billion for a State House that you're never going to visit. And with all the lockdowns, you can't visit anyway, but you're paying for it. So we have a problem. We have a problem because there are code words that each party has been using to justify their power. Things like safety. And, this idea that we can't open our state safely is so patently absurd and anti-science. And unfortunately, leaders in both parties are complicit with this. They're so afraid to be courageous and stand out and be an outlier. They're afraid. I've talked to Republican and Democratic leaders, and on the Democratic side, when it comes to opposing the leadership in their party, they abstain. On the Republican side, they do the same thing. And this is the problem. There are a lot of good people in both parties, but very few leaders. So as my friend Phil Rizzo had said earlier on in one of the interviews that we did on my morning radio show, New Jersey and America is a ground up organization, a ground up state. It's not top down. And we have been living top down for the past 30 years in New Jersey in particular. And the problem is you can't trust the guys at the top. And people think, oh, you wave a magic wand and maybe if a Republican becomes governor, if a Republican takes over this seat for the Senate, the Assembly, things will change. Here's the reality. It only changes if you have people who understand the struggle that working and middle class families go through in the state, right? It's not about the ideology of either party. It is about a philosophy that puts people first. It's about a philosophy that says families are important. We have to empower the middle class, the small business owner. Small businesses are the largest single employer, if you add them all up, in the entire state. Yet
That's right.
we have Democrats and Republicans that today, as we air this first episode, we are ending day 347 of 15 days to stop the spread. It's
Wow.
madness.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, you can look all around the country, Florida, Tennessee, South Dakota, Texas, look overseas, look at what's happening in Sweden right now. Look at what's
Yeah.
happening in Wales, despite a lockdown. Kids are back in school without distance and without masks. You know why?
Yeah.
The science is clear. Kids are not
Right.
affected by coronavirus. And
Right.
after 11 months, we have more data than ever. So putting Jersey first, and I want to thank Rosemary, Becky, and thank you, Elizabeth, for doing a great job saying that it is time to break out of this partisan shell, and it's
Yeah.
time to stop just voting party line and say we're going to hold the individual candidates and the individual office holders accountable for the statements that they make and the things they do. And sadly, over the past 11 months, the things that they haven't done. And it only happens when average people say, you know what? I know I work at a pharmacy, I work in a restaurant, I'm a maitre d', I'm a waiter, I'm a business owner, I drive a truck, whatever it is, I'm going to have to take 5 minutes out of my time in the day and pay attention to who's running, because these are the folks making decisions that have literally crushed this state. We are now behind just about every other state in the entire country, and there's no reason for it. Time to start again, and Jersey First is how to do it.
Yeah, I agree. You know, Rosemary always says people over politics. And I think that message now is even so much more important because this last year has crushed us. It's crushed the kids. It's crushed small business. It's crushed the middle class. It is absolutely so burdensome for families. Let's talk about what's happening to the children in this state. Let's talk about that. The schools not opening or opening with ridiculous requirements that don't make any sense. The distance learning. Bill, we're going to have issues, mental health issues piling up.
Well,
I'm so concerned about the long-term effect of this.
Well, you know, I had a conversation today with some of the good folks that are staffing the phone lines at the suicide hotline, and they are literally just flooded with calls. And sometimes those calls are coming from children as young as 11 and 12 years old that they can't cope with what's going on. Now, here's what we have to first start. We have to start the conversation about reality. Stop qualifying everything. When people say, well, how do we open the schools safely? There's only one way to open the schools safely. Open the schools.
Just open.
There's no, now we have Mayor de Blasio and Governor Murphy talking about double masks until June. There's no science behind that. As a matter of fact, the only science will show that A, the masks do literally nothing to stop viral spread, and B, it could be spreading the virus even faster. I had a doctor on my podcast a couple of weeks ago, and she used the example that this is one of the top cancer docs in the country. She used the example that if you put your thumb over the end of a hose as the water's coming out, the water pressure will actually increase in that smaller space. And the equivalent is the mask, the way people are wearing it, they're open on the side. So if you cough or sneeze or even just exhale, it's coming out with a greater force. Now, that's science, right? I'm no scientist, but I can listen to the scientists. And when you start asking the questions, why are we doing this? The politicians have no answers. You know, we go back, right? So we go back 347 days. We're coming in on a year now of a lockdown. And you think about it. The first step was make sure we had open hospital beds. Well, we accomplished that literally within a couple of weeks. Then they said, well, we want people to not die. Well, okay, a laudable goal, but people do die. And if you look at the numbers with COVID, elderly sick people are the ones who are dying. Then they said, well, we've kind of lost a thread there, because by May, people weren't dying at the same rate they were. Literally, you look at the curve in Sweden, South Korea, Japan, Texas, Florida, all over, exact same. Peaked in April, came crashing down in May. Lockdown or no lockdown, did not have any difference. And then you say, well, what was the next plan? Well, the next plan was, let's not have any positive cases because, oh, God forbid, we have a spread of a disease we can't control. Well, turns out they were using a test that the inventor of the test, who won the Nobel Prize, said, please don't use this test to determine whether or not people are sick.
The PCR,
Right. And then the World Health Organization came out and said the same thing the day after Joe Biden got sworn in. Now, again, politics is important in this because you're going to have to choose a vehicle. And the vehicle is going to be Democrat or Republican. And I am here speaking to you as a populist. I believe it is about people. I believe it is about working people, middle-class people, mothers and fathers and kids alike, and every person that has tried their best to work that extra couple hours to put a couple of extra dollars in the bank account. That's who we fight for. And I fight every day on my radio show. And I know Rosemary's fighting, Elizabeth, you're fighting, and most of you are out there fighting in your own way. This is the opportunity to organize that has nothing to do with the backroom party bosses. You know what? They're corrupt and they have betrayed any principle they had. You can't find me a Republican leader today that has the courage to stand up and say the things that I say every morning on the radio show. And that's the problem. The Democrats, they're too scared of Murphy and Sweeney and Coughlin to say anything. So what do we get? We get a legalized marijuana bill, which removes cops and parents from the
let's
equation.
talk about that. Let's talk about that. I mean, you talk about putting more pressure on families and basically telling them you can't parent your kids. There's no, our voices don't matter to them. Who came up with this bill? Somebody who doesn't even have children pushing this bill. Let's talk about what this does, not only to our police force, but what it really does to your ability as a parent to raise your children the way you want to.
The problem is that the debate is always skewed in the favor of the folks that are in power. So, for example, if you oppose lockdowns and mask mandates, you must be a conspiracy theorist kook that doesn't believe in science. Now, that statement isn't based in science, but the media regurgitates that nonsense, and people who don't have a lot of time in their day, they're like, oh, well, that makes sense. Yeah, you must be anti-vax. Not true. Same thing with the pot bill. The minute that I came out, and just so we're clear, I favor legalized marijuana. I'm one of the few Republicans who not only favors legalized marijuana, I don't think it should have ever been criminalized. I favored home grow. They do this in Vermont. We have a lot of friends in New England. Vermont, you can grow 3 or 4 plants in your backyard. Everybody leaves you alone. You roll a joint, you smoke it. That's not the point. No one is going to tell you that smoking marijuana is good for a 12-year-old. And the fact that in New Jersey, they pass a law that now institutionalizes and codifies this idea that cops cannot use the smell of marijuana or booze as probable cause for a search, or the cop could face, listen to this, up to 10 years in prison, up to $150,000 in a fine. Literally, police officers have been removed from helping people in our inner cities, in our suburban areas. You want to get that call from the cops. Listen, the cops don't want to bust these kids. Cops are not out there on some mission to violate civil rights. But sadly, the argument has been made that if you don't support legislation like this, well, you're just one of those stiff shirt Republican conservatives who doesn't support legal pot. No, I support the decriminalization of marijuana. Only New Jersey could have screwed it up. And let me tell you why. You know the old saying, Elizabeth? They say that a camel is a horse made by committee. Have you heard that statement?
Yeah, I have heard that statement.
You say that you're going to make a horse and it comes out looking like a camel. You didn't do your job right. Well, this is the same thing. Every interest group around the state had a little piece of input in this bill. And Governor Murphy's running for re-election, and they took a little piece from this caucus and a little piece from that caucus. What do we end up with? We end up with 12-year-olds able to smoke pot on the schoolyard without repercussions. That obviously is not in anyone's interest, whether you favor legal pot or you are anti every drug, including alcohol. We should have come together as people. What we should have done, you need to remove the politicians from that equation and empower the people. And the only way we do that is if we have thinking, rational people, whether you like Trump, hate Trump, like Biden, don't like Biden, doesn't matter. When I ran for office 100 years ago, and I ran for Congress, I talked about kitchen table issues. And kitchen table issues are not partisan. Kitchen table issues are, hey, we have a leak in the roof. Wow, I hope our insurance is paid up to date. Wow, I've got a flat tire on my car. How do tires cost $220 a piece? So these are the issues that people talk about around their kitchen table. They worry about their own kids. You know, somebody once asked me if a conservative or a liberal, who is better suited for a morning show? It was a funny comment. It was one of the senior guys at Town Square asked me this. And total left-wing liberal, absolutely way off the charts. And here I come in, you know, a guy that has a Reagan picture behind him. And he said, could a liberal do this job? And I said, no. And here's why. It's not liberal or conservative. Every person has their own personal beliefs that they want their neighborhood to be safe. They want to pay fewer taxes. They want their kids to stay out of trouble. There's a
Yep.
difference between how I run my family and how I might vote at election day. And what we need are more people that think about how they run their family to be
Yeah.
in charge of our state. And that's what we
Yeah.
lack. And this is the first step to taking it back.
Well, and this is a step to get people to have really a seat at the table, to have their voice heard. The frustration that I hear right now, I know a survey was just done of.
All right, now Elizabeth froze. I don't know if it's just me that sees that her frozen, but
I'm
I
back.
can't wait. I want to hear about the survey. That was a great tease. Like we went to commercial break.
Well, you know what, Bill? We're only as good as our internet connection, and that's the way it goes. Pure technology. So what I'm saying is that the number one issue people had was a distrust of the political machine and the fact that they were not represented. So what Jersey First is trying to do is give people a voice, right? Give them a seat at the table, have their voice be heard. But really, it's on each of us to get involved. So one of the things that we're launching, and you know about this, is Empower New Jersey, which is going to be a training platform for volunteers as well as people who want to run for office, any office, starting all the way down at county committee to board of education, all the way up. They need training. So that will be Empower New Jersey. And I want you to talk about why that's important. But people that want to get involved in this, go to Jersey First, the number one first, you'll see it scrolling underneath, .org, and sign up so we can let you know when it launches. But Bill, it's important, right? We can't just talk about this and complain. We have to step out and do something.
Well, it's about action. And I think what happens is when you ask people, what can I do? And there are people out there that are willing to do. They're willing to run for school board. They're willing to go to a school board meeting and say something. Maybe they're just willing to write an email and express their frustration, or call and leave a message at the governor's office. Either way, training is an interesting word. I think a lot of people hear training and they feel like, I don't need another class. I'm not going to be an expert in this. It's not about that. Elizabeth said it correctly. It's about empowerment. It's about making sure that you feel that as much as you can and will put into the cause of taking this state back for normal people. And I say that, I know it's not politically correct, and I don't care. Normal people disagree on politics. Normal people disagree on food tastes and, what constitutes, a good-looking person or not, right? Normal people have their own prejudices, whether with the way they live their life. Normal people live their lives, and actually normal people they don't want the government involved every step of the way. But here's the thing. We're not going to get a government that will stay out of our way until we get a government that stays out of our way by putting people in office who understand that the country and the state and our communities are built on people. The guy that delivers the milk, the guy that needs the flour for the bread, that is the way this country was built. So I've spent a lot of time talking with normal people over the past 6 years hosting the morning show, 7 years hosting Chasing News and interacting on social media. When I ran for office, I knocked on 17,000 doors, walked 200 miles to 44 towns in the district. And, it was interesting to me because the people I met along the way that were in the neighborhoods were normal. They didn't care if it was Republican or Democrat. They wanted to know, who are you? Why are you knocking on my door right now? What do you want to do that's going to make my life better? And the people who were in the way were the bureaucrats in Washington. They were the party regulars who had an agenda to hold on to their power. They weren't interested in the concept of citizen legislators. They're interested in the concept of holding on to power for the elites. Look at what's going on in the country. We are literally watching the destruction of the middle class, and it's happened in just 11 months. Who would have thought? I mean, it's been building up for years. So when we talk about training, when we talk about empowerment, basically what we're talking about is, how do I explain to you, who has 2 jobs and 3 kids and 9 million things going on, and you got to go get the oil changed and pick up the dry cleaner and make sure your internet is working correctly, all of those things. But at the same time, there's somebody in elected office sitting in Trenton making rules that impact your life, that take money out of your pocket, that increase your taxes, that make it harder for your friends to keep their business going, let alone open new ones. New York City right now, in my opinion, is dead for potentially the next 10 years. maybe
I
10
know.
years, maybe longer. And people say to
Wow.
me, Bill, that's impossible. It's the greatest
Mm,
city on earth. And I said, you know what? Look at the pictures of Newark, New Jersey in the 50s and early 60s.
right.
And
Right.
this was a place that people called the Paris of the East Coast. There
Yeah.
were, people dressing up to go out to dinner and the gaslit lamps on the corner, women carrying the umbrellas and the nice dresses. Like, you have this picture of a city that was vibrant. There was a middle class. There were restaurants and shops and all of this. And it all went away. And it has not come back even today. It's 2021. Look at Asbury
Unbelievable.
Park, right? Asbury
Yeah.
Park has been wrecked for decades.
That's
Starting to
right.
come back, sure, but
Yeah.
not there yet. And
Yeah.
let me tell you the reason, in my opinion. We've had Republicans and Democrats both running on a platform of fixing our inner cities. But what do they end up doing at the end of the day? They end up paying lip service to the real poverty, the real horror show that goes on in our public housing projects, the real horror show. I went to Curly's Shoe Shine in the South Ward in Newark a couple of years ago, and I asked them, now this is a third generation shoe shine place, got my shoe shined. It was right a block and a half from the school. And I said, when Cory Booker was mayor, what was it like? And how is it now? They said, well, thankfully, police are back on our street corners because we had drug dealers and gunshots and everything else going wrong. Thankfully, the cops are back. And why do I give that story? Because you can't trust the media. You can't trust the narrative that you are being spoon-fed, that for some reason, if you're a person of color, you automatically hate cops. It's simply not true. Everything you've been hearing. We had an entire nation shut down over what is literally a cold virus. That's not a conspiracy theory. That's literally what it is. 20% of the colds, according to Fauci, come from the coronavirus. And why did we shut down healthy people knowing we knew it in May that almost all of the victims were going to be older, sick, compromised people? We shut down schools. Kids were not affected. 1.8 million Swedish kids stayed in school. Not one of them died with or from COVID. Now, why do I say all that? Because what Elizabeth is saying and what Rosemary is saying is we as a society have lost control of our government. How is it possible that we're taking lessons in individual liberty from socialists in Sweden? Right? Think about this for a minute. Socialist democracies,
Of all
Sweden,
people.
South Korea. South Korea lectured us that we're a free republic. We can't shut down healthy people, and they didn't. And neither did Japan. And anyway, that gets lost in the media. So you know what? Turn the channel, focus on Jersey First TV, listen to me in the morning, and get control of your community. We can do it, and this is how we do it. What Rosemary and Elizabeth are doing here is creating a vehicle so that there's a place to go and say, I want to help. And there's going to be somebody on the other end of that Zoom call, or hopefully in the lecture hall soon, or in the library, in the classroom, in the home, doing a coffee in a living room, saying, here's how we can act to take control of our future. Because you know what? After a couple of years of fighting, my hope is we can all go back to our normal lives.
Please,
and
that would
again, forget who our political leaders are. Because I hate the fact that we don't know who they are. Right?
That would
Just
be,
leave us alone.
That's so true, but we can't do that anymore. And I urge
now.
everyone, and people have been reaching out saying, what can I do? Everyone can do something. I want to tell you, since the medical freedom fight, I have been in all this situation for 1 year. In 1 year, we have made all of these great strides. Listen, you guys can do it. You're frustrated. You're concerned about the future of your family, your kids, they're hurting. Don't just, post on social media, get involved. We will give you the mechanism to do that. And there's some people listening, Bill, who will make great candidates. Talk about somebody right now, talk to them who's thinking, school board, I don't know if I can do it. Or there's an assembly race. Should I run?
Let me cut right to the chase. You don't have to come from money. You don't have to be a great speaker. You don't have to be any of the things that the lying politicians and media have tried to scare you as a regular person away from running for office. It's the opposite. I'm sick and tired of slick, suit-wearing, cropped hair politicians who I know they're dressing up for the camera because they know it's not about the message. It's not about the results. It's only about the package and the presentation. It's just like media. The media no longer speaks truth to power. The media no longer represents a little guy. The media represents their own financial interests, and they sell clickbait. That's what they do. They panic peddle and they fearmonger. Same thing in politics. The politicians want you to believe, oh, it's too hard. Oh, they go through your trash. Oh, stop it. Stop it. No, they don't. They'll try. But you know what? We're strong together. And
Yeah.
it's time for average people. I said this the other day. Joni Ernst, who's a senator in Iowa, who I like, but in my opinion, she said a stupid thing the other day. She came out and she said, you know, there are a lot of women leaving the workforce, and we need to reverse that by opening up schools. And I thought to myself for a moment, why would a leading Republican senator at some point who wants to maybe run for president disparage all the women who have made a choice to raise their kids? So if you've decided that, you know what, I don't have to have daycare anymore, so we don't need the second income, so I'm now going to manage my house and take on the job of being a mom, God bless you. God bless you. It's a job.
Yeah.
I want to know why Joni Ernst didn't propose a tax credit for all the moms who have been displaced from that second job.
Absolutely.
And then decided, I'm going to raise my 3 kids because, my goodness, I've got Zoom hell going on with remote learning. Somebody better be in charge of this mess.
Yeah.
Again, it's a different way of thinking. So if you're a mom at home, if you drive a truck, I don't care what you do. If you're a consultant, you're a salesman, it doesn't matter. Politics is for the rest of us. And it is time to take it back from the elites who have made it this prized possession. Let me tell you something. Having run for office, having worked in Washington, sat on the board with the RNC, it's all garbage. It's all about perpetuating the power and the money for the people who have chosen politics as a career. And what we've learned in this lockdown is that those career politicians have destroyed our society. We have children taking their own lives at record numbers because politicians, and we saw the same thing with the vax movement, right? They wanted to force people to say, your religious exemption doesn't matter. We're going to take that away from you because we know best. Really? You got Governor Murphy walking around with 2 masks and he knows best? Come on. I mean, come on.
Listen, what happened to personal responsibility and a respect for the family? You know, I don't know when we lost that, because Americans, by the way, I trust my fellow American to a large degree. I want to give them the opportunity to make these decisions. And then if they don't make the right decisions, we'll deal with it on the other end. But somehow that all got upside down. So our kids are hurting, our families are hurting, our small businesses are hurting, our police are not being supported. We've got the middle class being squeezed. New Jersey has problems. We've got the cancel culture. I mean, it is time. Everyone who's listening to us, stand up, volunteer, knock on doors, make phone calls, find out how you can get involved in grassroots. You want to run? You can run. Trust me. Bill tells you can. It's worth it. We need normal people to run to represent us normal people. And you know what, Bill, I want to read this Jersey First pledge, which you were involved in before. But Rosemary has this Jersey First pledge, which I love. And she's got it on the website. And you guys got to go there, jerseyfirst.org. You see it on the bottom of the screen. Now, listen, guys, if you sign this pledge, you can sign it online. And you do that in the next 24 hours, free t-shirt comes your way. Everybody loves a free t-shirt. Get a Jersey First t-shirt. Let me read it to you. It says, I pledge to the citizens of New Jersey that I will put New Jersey first. I will take action by advocating for economic and social policies in the best interests of New Jersey families and businesses. Wouldn't that be a breath of fresh air, Bill? Wouldn't that be amazing if everyone in Trenton said yes to this pledge?
Well, not only would that be a blessing, but it would show that the people are just tired of being picked on. We're tired of being pushed around. We're tired of the politicians lying. The governor just put forward a $44 billion budget. That's up almost $10 billion over Chris Christie's last budget. And I thought Chris Christie's budgets were irresponsible. It's gotten worse. They're borrowing another $4 billion. They've not asked for voter approval. They have absolutely ignored the courts. It's all of this. And how do we sit back and even stand for one more minute, this fear mongering that has people saying in these so-called experts saying that your kids are super spreaders, protect grandma, all this stuff. Guys, it's all a lie. And you know it. And you know the science is with us. The problem is that we don't have enough normal people to stand up from Twitter. Twitter's not real life. Facebook's not real life. Your fights on Twitter are irrelevant. I told Elizabeth, I told you this. I throw a few snarky things out because it just is fun once in a while. But the reality is I pull back from Twitter. I now connect with most people on LinkedIn. And I accept every request on LinkedIn, and I have normal conversations with people because people don't care. I was telling you, I do hot yoga. I practice hot yoga 5 days a week. And, people who practice hot yoga are not exactly who you would expect to be folks involved in politics or concerned. Let me tell you, they're small business people. They understand the body's natural defenses, and they are as mad as yogis can get that our state is still under lockdown because we have politicians who don't care about you. And the sooner that more people sign this pledge, the sooner that people stand up, the sooner that people say, you know what, why not me? I don't have to give a great speech. Not everybody's going to be a great orator. It doesn't matter. What matters is, do you care? You're sitting around your kitchen table and you're talking to people in your family and your friend group. You know what? Take it out one step further and think about a school board meeting and think about a city council meeting. Imagine if we could replace just 10% of the clowns that are in office right now.
Yep, exactly.
Change the state. Doesn't take everyone. It takes a small committed group of people.
It does. You're right. You can make such a difference. So I want to thank Rosemary Becky again for relaunching this organization with a broader mandate. It's exactly what we need right now. I want to tell you guys, go to jerseyfirst.org, sign the pledge, sign up so we can tell you when the volunteer information comes out, the candidate classes, all of that. Bill, I know you're going to stick with us for that. But to everyone listening, guys, it's time to put New Jersey first. It's time for us to solve our problems. It's time for our families to come first. You need to join in on this. Just don't sit around anymore and be frustrated, because we're with you. There are more of us than there are of them. There really are. And we can do this together. We can make a difference. So, Bill, as always, I just so appreciate you coming on board and supporting this, and your voice is really important to us, and there's so many people that listen to you. So thank you for your support. Thank you to Rosemary Becky for an amazing organization. Guys, we're going to be here every week, Thursday night, 7:00 live. We're going to talk about all the hard issues. Next week, it's going to be about the schools reopening. So we're going to be here with different guests. Join in, stay with us, be a part of this, get more involved. Let's save New Jersey and put it first. Bill, thank you again for being here.
Thanks, Elizabeth. Thanks, everyone.
All right, guys, we'll see you
next
next
week.
Yeah, sign on to NJ 101.5. Okay, guys, talk to you later.